And welcome back to another episode on Oak and Rock Fatherhood. As always, you've got your co-host, myself, Zachary Small, Anthony Migliorino over there, crushing it. Anthony, welcome back. We got another show going.
Yes, sir. What's going on, Zach? Sunday morning. I'm liking it. Family time. We get to discuss the topics we love: fatherhood, parenting. As always, Oak and Rock, baby. And this is good. I think this is gonna be a good time. The juices are flowing. It's early morning, so it's similar to a dad's day.
You know what I like about that? Honestly, we're going 6 days a week now, man. And so we've got Monday through Friday. We're on Twitter. On Sundays, we're rolling here. But when you look at it, we have our FOE call. So we get the coffee with the gentleman, having our discussions, and then we jump into this. And it's one of those where it primes you when you're around other men and you're around other fathers who are motivated. You start to see things differently. You start to look at the world through a different lens, a higher standard of a lens. And so when we have these discussions, one of the things I'm looking at is it's not looking at the man as if, hey, what you're doing is wrong. It's, hey, what you're doing has gotten you here, but here are some tools to help you go even higher. And one of the issues that we see a lot of is parents having to face defiance. Kids who aren't listening, kids who maybe are pushing back. And instead of saying, oh, you're not a good parent because your kid pushes back, the way we're going about this is like, look, defiance is a part of life. It's a part of all relationships. Sometimes it's a spouse, sometimes it's a friend, a business partner, an associate, a boss, an employee. Sometimes there will be conflict and they will be defiant to what it is you're advising or recommending they do. And so if we can handle this within our home, it makes us better men to go out into the world because we can better operate in those other relationships as well. And so when we're talking defiance here, I just want to make sure it's coming from the lens of those watching. This is how you should handle it with everyone. But with your children, there's a few unique angles we got to take. And I know you were recently talking about this, so I really wanted to pick your brain on when it comes to overcoming or handling defiance. Where do you start with men looking to bring more peace into the home in that manner?
Well, yeah, we how many stories do we hear about parents, especially fathers, complaining about their kids being defiant, disobeying, being disobedient? And the first place I start is we have to make sure we're setting the example. So if your child is having a tantrum, is oversensitive, acting out, we need to make sure that we're not doing the same. We're not meeting them at that energy. We need to make sure that we're being the adult in that situation. And that's tough because kids push buttons, right? Kids are, and we think it's purposeful. We think they're deliberately doing that. We think that they're trying to get to us. And think about how disconnected that is from the environment you're in. You have a little child who has an issue, has a problem. They don't know how to display that in a mature way as an adult would. And then we act like the child, right? And we say, oh, the kid's saying, I don't want to do this, or you're not listening to me. And then we say, well, you're not listening to me. That needs to be recognized and it needs to be cut out, right? We need to see defiance as almost like a cry for help, as opposed to them deliberately trying to enrage us and get us angry. So that's the mental, the emotional regulation is important. And if you're not aware of it, you keep falling into the trap. And I can't tell you how many like different little things that we pick our kids apart throughout the course of the day, right? If they don't listen, and we say, well, we need you to do this now, and I'm the boss and I'm the leader, and you have to obey. Kids don't comprehend that the same way that we think the words we're saying are meant to be understood, right? Kids have their own needs. And it's weird because if we spoke like this to another human being, we would get it, right? If I said, Zach, listen, man, I need you to go and do this now. You'd be like, well, hey, man, I'm my own person. I'll let you know when I can do it for you, right? It never works that way in any other relationship. So we need to start accepting our kids as, first of all, as people, that they have their own needs, their own wants and desires. And we need to respect that. And this enrages people. It enrages parents because then they're like, well, who's in control? Right? Who's in charge? If I have to care about what my kid wants, who's in charge? But the simple fact is, once you start going down that path, your kids understand the environment now. And they understand, hey, when I have a problem, dad's going to help. Hey, so next time I have a problem, I don't have to lash out. I don't have to scream and cry. I don't have to make sure that I'm heard and that I'm seen. Dad gets me. He understands. So things de-escalate if you continually stay focused on that path.
You know what? When I go through this or I look at it at my kids, one of the things that I'm paying attention to is, am I defaulting to this answer? And so are they being defiant to an arbitrary rule? Like, why am I telling them to do the thing I'm telling them to do? And so that's another element that goes into this is kids should not blindly follow anyone. And I think that trips parents out a lot because they're like, well, I'm the parent. They should, anything I say, they should do. But if you raise a child to just listen to what any adult says, you could be setting your child up to be taken advantage of sexually. They could be manipulated. They could find themselves having to do the wrong thing because the person telling them to do it is an adult. And if that adult's saying, hey, you guys should go beat up that kid, okay, I mean, you're the adult. And these might be extreme situations, but is it really? You look at how many children are like traumatized from physical abuse, sexual abuse. They're taken advantage of. They're forced to do things with the in group, change who they are to fit in. You know, these kids are doing so because an adult told them to do it. And if adults are always right, then who are they to push back? And so I think there's an element here when it comes to defiance. Sometimes I look at my children's defiance as the best characteristics that they have. It's somewhat of a revolutionary spirit. It's somewhat, you know, I stand for this. I believe in this. I don't believe in what you're telling me to do. And so it's not so much go make your bed. No. It's more, hey, we need to go and do this. I don't want to do that. Or I think we should do it this way. Those are viewed, they're lumped into the same category as defiance, when in all reality, it's a different perspective. And if you never allow your child to share their perspective, they stop to value it. And they stop to think that it's almost beaten out of them. Nobody wants to hear it anyway, so why share it? Why let my dad know that I don't like the way he does this? He's going to make me do it anyway, so I'm just going to spare myself the fight. And as the parent, you think that's the win. Oh, see? They'll listen. You just got to break them enough. No, what you did is you broke them. You just got them to stop trying, and they're going to stop trying in other places. And this is how you have kids who work for bosses that will take advantage of them. Hey, I need you to come in on the weekend for those TPS reports. You're not getting overtime, though. I want you to come in on your time. And you're like, yes, boss, will do. From the outside looking in, you're like, what are you doing? You're worth more. Like, why would you tolerate that? Well, why would I stand up against this? He's in charge. I'm just the lowly peasant. That's how we treat our kids, and that's how they become those adults who do that. And so defiance, it can't be just viewed as bad kids because it's more than that. And it can't just be viewed as disruptive child. Like, oh, he's just a bad listener. You're not a bad boy. I heard somebody at the grocery store call a kid they didn't even know a bad boy because he threw a paper airplane. And I was like, are you serious? That's just a child playing. And you're telling him he's bad. How many times does a kid have to be told he's bad or wrong or his opinion doesn't matter for him to stop thinking that his existence matters? And then we find out, oh, that kid took his life. That kid, you know, was ashamed of himself. That kid hurt other people. I never saw it coming. How does this sweet little angel, how does this happen to them? We were so kind because you told them they were horrible. So they said, you know what? I'm going to be horrible. And so when we're talking about defiance, I don't want it to come into this category of these very simple, your kid doesn't make his room or clean his room. We've got to look at this from that angle. That is a part of it. But this is a very big picture topic that I don't want to be lost on those watching.
No, and man, that's an excellent point, Zach. So do you want your kid to be well behaved, but not understand anything about themselves? Or do you want them to express who they are, maybe have a little chaos, but being able to work through things, right? So if a kid isn't able to share who they are, like you said, have a disagreement with you, that's where we learn. A kid who never questions his parents or is never defiant, they're never going to get that opportunity to learn. And the problem, what happens is, imagine being in a place or in a home where you have questions, you have concerns, and you'd like to speak up about it, but you never get the opportunity. So now when you're faced with something outside the home, you have no idea how to react to that. You have no idea how to respond because you're waiting for the cues for somebody else to tell you how to live, right? You're waiting for a teacher or you're waiting for the policeman. You're waiting for and what happens is it's such an emotional buildup. So the denial of defiance creates a child who lashes out even more. And then the patterns are repeated, the behaviors are repeated. And then we have to apply more pressure because now it's escalating, right? It's cleaning your room becomes this constant difficult task that we can never get past because we ourselves are not saying, what does the child need? We're saying, man, my kid's making me feel angry. So that's besides being destructive, it's not a healthy relationship. It's a parent who's saying that I can't have control of my emotions. I'm gonna dump my needs on my child, And then when they resist or they are defiant, I don't care because I need to feel validated, right? I need to feel accepted as I'm actually a good parent or my parenting skills are effective. Even though the truth is you're not living up to that standard, right? You're not having conversations about parenting. You're not reading parenting books. You're not understanding the psychology that's happening behind the curtain, right? You're just reacting on the emotions that you've never or you were never taught how to handle as a child. So that's the cycle that we get trapped in. And who's gonna how are we gonna raise healthy kids, right, who are resilient and can stand up for themselves if we're pushing them down in childhood, if we're never allowing them to experience that emotion and that feeling?
I was just thinking of that, man. Like literally, I was just thinking, you know who these parents are? They're the parents who were the kids that weren't allowed to voice their opinion or stand against their parents. And so finally, it's finally their turn. And here we are telling them, nope, now you got to listen to them too. You got to listen to your kids. And so they're listening to us like, screw you guys. And I get it. Like I do understand, the frustration there, because it's like, man, as a kid, you were told, listen to the parents, and now you've got two dudes telling you, hey, now you got to listen to your kids. And where was your moment? And you have to understand, like, that is the moment. That is the point. That is a good thing. You aren't less than, and your needs aren't going to be let go because you have to connect and find resolutions with your children. They shouldn't blindly obey you. They should stand up. And one of the things that I really enjoy about my kids, and I shared something today about sons versus daughters, and being able to raise both, I get to see kind of the two different softwares that operate in human minds. Like there's the masculine, there's the feminine, there's the boys being a little more rambunctious, a little more like aggressive out there, the girls being a little more reserved with that, but in a different way, just as aggressive and attacking life. And it's cool to see how unique they are, on top of just being unique individuals. And so when you look at it from that angle, you see these kids expressing what it is to be a pure human by allowing them to connect with you and by not trying to operate in the world that you want them to operate in, but letting them operate in the world that they exist in. You get to see the best of your children. And that's what makes you the best man you can be, or the best parent you can be, because now you're raising an individual, not a controlled mini clone. You're raising somebody that is unique to you, that is different from you, that's going to have opposing views from you. It's like you get to raise another human being, which is going to bring different perspectives to your life, which allows you to be the better person. You get to learn from your kids. If you're constantly controlling and pushing them down, and we're going to get to some resolutions on defiance, but for right now, it's kind of breaking down the theory of it. It's that you need to understand their defiance might be stemming from their worldview, which could be different from your own, even if you are their parent who's been with them from day number one. They're not you. The world they grow up in is not the world you grew up in. The experience they're having with their parents is not the experience you had with your parents. And so you can't take for me, I can't take my 35 years of existence and experience and what happened to me and put that into my kid's head and expect them to think and act like me, because that's unique to me. I'm as unique as my fingerprints, man. And so are our children. And so what is often viewed as defiance is simply different. It's a difference of perspective. And so they're not defying you. They're just trying to assert themselves. I believe this, or I think this. And if you're sitting there and you're like, oh, well, I'm trying to think of a good example. Something about food. Eat your greens. They're good for you. Greens suck. Oh, you can't have spicy food. That's not for kids. I love spicy food. Who are you to choose your child's palate? Like, let the kids choose their foods. And I know that's a very base level, and right now on the fly, that's all I could think of. But from food choices to sports choices to academic choices, what they want to do with their future, these little things, if you break them in their youth, you're not going to know who they are as they grow. And when they go to choose a school, they're going to run it through the filter of, will my dad approve of this? They're not going to choose the college they want to go to. They're going to choose the college that's not going to make you angry, because they have to stay. They've been conditioned to fall in line with your happiness and your satisfaction. Your homeostasis is their perfect purpose in life. They've got to keep you happy. They've got to keep you from going off the rails. They've got to make sure they're making you proud. And that's the saddest life to live, because it's subservience. They're living their life in a service to you. And I don't believe that's the way we should raise kids. I think their defiance is a part of who they are as individuals, and we should embrace that. And my kids say no to me. My kids say why to me. And I come at this from a very, I would say, focused approach on parenting. Like I'm very focused in my life.
I
I'm
would
very
say
mission.
so.
Yeah, I had to find my adjectives here. I wanted to go with the right word there. Like I was gonna say aggressive, but people would misconstrue that for like heavy-handed or something like that. I'm very aggressive in pursuit of what I want, and I give my kids that same aggressiveness. And so if they're as hungry and chasing something like I do, they're going to be as confrontational as I am, and I will tell you no if I don't like what you're doing. So why would I not expect my kids to do the same?
Exactly. No, so there's a couple things there, man, that were really good points. The first one I want to emphasize is we see what goes on in the world, right? We see these kids who are these young adults growing up who lash out, who a lot of people are upset with the state of the world, and you have the older generation picking them apart, saying, "Oh, these kids are messed up these days. We need to hit them more." Right? They don't respect authority. And then those are the same parents when their kids were younger and the kid said no, or the kid said, "Why do I have to eat this?" They lashed out, right? They had that big emotional response where they were saying, "Oh, how dare you defy me?" Right? You go to your room, and there's never a communication. There's never a conversation about why we do things, how we should do things. And there's never that feeling of, "Hey, man, I care about you. So I'm here to listen to you. I'm here to understand what you're going through." And then those kids grow up and those parents don't even see that's what they've created, right? They're completely aware of it. They don't even want to face it then, right? Forget about facing it in the moment. It's like you spent 10 years creating a picture and then you hang it up on your wall and everybody's like, "Who the fuck painted that piece of shit?" And you're like, "Well, what do you mean?" Right? That was my hard work for a decade into that. You're so unaware of what you're creating, right? And you don't want to face it because it's painful. It's painful to say, "Hey, man, maybe I messed up. Maybe there were things I could have done better." Right? And that's why we talk about being present. Like, you said you're super focused on fatherhood and parenting. Why shouldn't every parent be that way? Why, when we live in a home with our kids and we're saying we're raising them, why do we not take steps to actually raise them? We just exist. We just tell them what to do, what they can't do, and we think that's parenting. So that was one thing I wanted to point out. The other thing is we say it all the time. The language is important we use, and you said a couple words about being assertive or being aggressive. It's the same thing with discipline or a kid being disobedient. We get triggered by those words, right? If you were to say, "I'm an assertive man," people get triggered. They're like, "Oh my God, he's going to smash me in the face. He probably has guns. He probably has a harpoon that he's going to throw at me." But this is the words that we use that trigger us. And it's the same thing with kids. So if you're in a home and you're constantly telling your son that he's lazy, that he's stupid, right? He believes it. He starts to paint a picture of who he is. It's the same thing with aggressive. If we keep telling little boys that they're aggressive, right? This is their human nature, that girls are always quiet and quaint and feminine, and boys always have to be aggressive and masculine. I think we're doing them a disservice because I think the aggression comes out from the abuse. There is an element where young boys are more rambunctious, they're wild, they have that energy, they're masculine. That's what I would say. Like my son has both. And he, even from an early age, he can dial it back because he didn't have that reactive emotional instability because his dad was always screaming, yelling, and hitting him. So when he's in a position where he's facing a challenging thing, there might be times where he lashes out, but there were also times where he can find comfort in himself because when those lash outs happened, I found comfort in myself. I set that example for him, right? I didn't meet him at his level and say, "Oh, you little bastard, you can't talk to me or your mom like that." I said, "Hey, man, what's going on? What's wrong? Do you need anything from me? How can I help you calm this situation?" So young boys, popular to contrary to popular belief, they can regulate. They can be stable at a young age. It's that we just keep telling them that they're fucked up and that they're only aggressive and bad, and society hates that about them.
We had a discussion with Brendan Murata talking about words, and we do need to be intentional with them. And that's what I think happens too. And this comes across with both of us. I've seen it play out in both of us unintentionally. So we mean a certain things with the words we use. And so if I say I'm disciplining my kids, you would hear me say that and be like, oh, Zach's sitting down and breaking down like hows and the whys, and I'm teaching them in whatever field we're talking about.
Yep.
Other people would hear me say that and be like, oh, he's hitting them. He had to discipline them, he had to spank them or slap them or whatever he did with them. And so when you're operating off different words, and you're not as intentional with them, things get misconstrued and the picture gets a little blurry as to what we're talking about. And so when we have these discussions, one of the things I try to stick to is to keep it in the most simple terms as possible, because there are parents out there who they're operating from a framework of what was, and we're talking about what could be and what is for us. And our reality is different for many because the approach we take to parenting. And I think that's not a negative. It's just a reality. It's not a bad thing that parents have to go through this. It's just the fact of life is their parents didn't teach them to stand up for themselves. And they did teach them that children who speak against an adult are wrong. And children who speak against an authority are wrong. And we're not living in an age where that really applies any longer. We see a lot of teachers pushing political ideology, pushing personal beliefs upon children. And it's no longer the days where if you didn't listen to your tribal chief, you'd eat the wrong berries and die. Yeah, I get it. Or slavery. We spoke about the trauma virus in the Black communities and why it still seems to be more prevalent in Black communities than white. And what we had discussed with the Indomitable Black Man is that with slavery, the parents had to keep the child quiet because it's better for the parent to hit the kid than the master to hit the kid, because doing it out of love might actually apply there. It's like, hey, you got to stop crying. You got to listen to me because that dude's going to lose his mind and it's going to hurt a lot more. I love you, but you got to stop. And I'm going to use this to make you stop. We don't live in that environment any longer. We don't live in a world where the elders are needed to keep the children alive. The kids can live. The kids can go out and do a lot of stupid things and still live. And so why are we still hanging on to the type of parenting required when if you don't, then you die actually applied? It doesn't apply any longer, but we're not evolving. And so nowadays, and like I said, this is to bring it back to the parents who are having these issues. There's nothing wrong with you. You were brought up under a certain regime, a certain program to where it's normal. Same thing if a communist were to come to America and they're asking for permission to do this, that, and the other. And we're like, bro, you can do whatever the fuck you want. They would have no idea what you meant by that. What do you mean I can do whatever I want? The government's going to choose my home, choose my car, choose my family, choose my this, that, and the other. Obviously, I'm being a broad stroke here with communism. But they operate in that environment for so long that freedom is weird and is strange. And so for other parents hearing us, it might be a little weird and a little strange. But if you really hear what it is we're saying, we're telling you to stop operating from the parenting method that applied 2,000 years ago and to bring it to what applies today. And so kids should stand against authority today. Kids should be able to speak their truth so long as they are doing so from a genuine place. And they're not just trying to break things for the sake of breaking them because they're finally allowed to speak. And I would say in that's where you have to break it down to the situation as to what's really going on. Conflict resolution is a thing. It's something that you develop as an adult. And so if you haven't developed that, why do you think your kid should? And so this is where we kind of got to look in the context of, well, what made your kid yell? What made them lash out? Maybe it is something you did, or maybe your kid's being an asshole in that moment. And so it happens too. This isn't just a parent thing, but you do condition your kids to certain behaviors. And so the solution's always going to start with you.
No, 100%. And, a big thing moving forward is to be able to decode the behavior, right? To really be able to empathize with your child and see what they're going through instead of reacting. We say it all the time: respond, overreact. And think about how this plays out in history. What we see now is there is a resistance to authority, right? We have young people, whether it's in school, with the law, we have all these scenarios we see play out where the people are saying, man, why don't they just listen? Why don't they just behave? And this has been going on for a long time. So if we go back to the home, again, if you see defiance as a trigger word, right? We say, oh, my kid's being defiant. You make it about you, right? You make it about, why isn't he listening to me? I'm the authority. It's the same thing within the system, right? We don't care about the people. We don't care. They don't care about your opinion. They just want you to stay out of their way. That's why when you have a problem, they go and attack you. It's the same thing with parenting, right? As a parent, you have to care about your child. if your child has an issue and you can't get emotional about their emotional state, right? You can't get upset because your kid's crying. You can't get upset because your kid doesn't want to go to the store with you. It's nothing personal, but we have to care about what they want. And a lot of people say, oh, well, again, they always resort back to that default. I'm the authority. I'm in charge. They have to listen to me. You can do that. You can go down that route, but that's going to continually grow. It's going to escalate, and it's going to get worse every time. And that's when we talk about the teenage years, where now they're a little bit bigger. They're a little stronger. Their brain's more developed. And guess what, man? Now you got a real problem on your hand. Right now, you got a defined teenager who doesn't trust you, who's not going to listen to you, and is going to push back. Maybe if you put their hands on them, you might get a little bit of taste in your own medicine, or they might run away. Right? They might completely say, "I'm 18. I'm the hell out of here. You can keep this house. You can keep this life. I'm going to build my own." That's what we've seen. Right? That's kind of history playing out. What we've never seen is what we're talking about. Right? If you wake up in the morning and you're faced with all these different challenges of being a parent, breakfast, shoes on, teeth brushed, getting out for the bus on time, cleaning the room. When kids don't want to do it, it is nothing about you. It's about their life and their priorities. And you better believe that when your life is in disarray, when your life is unorganized and you don't have your shit together, your kids are going to follow your example. So now think about that burden we put on them. As an adult, we're not taking responsibility to have our life squared away. And then we see it play out in our child because they mirror us. And then we punish them for their disobedience. It's like we're kicking ourselves in the face. That's what we're doing.
Dude, when I'm like sitting here smiling like an idiot because you're going through it, I'm like, oh man, I got so many good points on this. But you look at it, man, like you look at these dads, you look at, I would say even parents, man, it's not just a dad thing. We speak often to dads, so that's kind of where the focus is, but this goes to all parents. It goes to all adults. When you look at these kids, this would be better shared as an example. I had a dude come to me for coaching. He's an alcoholic and divorced, and his kids, they weren't listening to him. And so he was asking for like, hey, like, how do I get them to listen? I'm trying to be peaceful parents and all this. And I was like, well, you got to really commit to that. I was like, you can't like be trying this peaceful parenting thing. Like, just do it, because he was saying, oh, I'm trying, but they'll do this. And then, I'll have to give him a little whack. I'm like, no, see, you're not trying, because that little moment there is where you stop. He's like, yeah, but I was hit. I turned out all right. So I don't think that's the issue. Let me go back to how this man entering my zone. Alcoholic, divorced. I turned out just fine. Bro, you are numbing yourself daily. You're angry and beating your kids, and you couldn't maintain a healthy relationship with the spouse. Whether it's her fault, your fault, it doesn't matter. You ended up divorced. So something there didn't work. What makes you think that had nothing to do with how you were brought up? This is what trips me out, man. Why do we overlook how we were brought up when it comes to where we're at? And that is one example. I could probably give you a long list of men who've told me while coming to me for coaching, meaning they needed help. Here's my list of fucked up things. I was hit and I turned out all right. People who turn out all right don't have a long list of fucked up things about them they need to fix. They just continuous improvement for sure, but a bunch of things to overhaul? No, man. You don't have to do that when you get it right in life. And so when I think about these kids and I think about defiant children, I think about children coming up in a home that are pushing against a regime of sorts, and they're trying to find their own way, and they're being told constantly, no, I'm the adult, do as I say. What you want is not as important as what I'm telling you is right. And again, you brought up that the brain is forming. I don't remember what it is, and you might know the answer. There's a part of the brain that's not fully developed till mid-20s. Is that the frontal lobe?
Frontal cortex, yeah.
All right, so that means as it's developing,
reasoning.
As the brain is developing that part of itself, it's doing so from a structure that doesn't trust itself. And so that's getting like intertwined into the development of your prefrontal cortex, is a brain that doesn't trust itself. It's constantly at war with what I want versus what they want me to do. I've got to silence myself. Oh, let's develop this new part of me. That part started with poisoned water. That farm is you're watering those plants with poison. So when you eat the vegetables from the fruit from them, you're like, oh, why are these gross? What the gross plant in this story is the broken adult. Why are you so fucked up, man? Because I was watered with poisoned water. Well, how did that happen? Because as I turned into a man and became my own person, I was doing so with this fucked up sense of self that I couldn't trust. That's a wild fucking concept, man.
It's crazy.
Like,
That's insane.
But then they come to you. You're wrong, not me. No, dude, you're coming to me for help. How am I wrong?
we're two dads talking about these complex ideas, and we're trying to break it down because I don't know the terminology, right? I don't know the scientific ways of it, but I do know the effects of it, just like you described, man. That's great when you paint those pictures, right? We might not know what part of the brain, we've read it in a book somewhere, we've understood it, but it comes out in our own words. And that's what I love, man. It's like fathers can really understand this if you listen to what we're saying. But it's like if you had let's say you had a big oak tree in your yard and you were growing a garden next to it, and it's stopping the sunlight to get to the garden so you can grow your vegetables. And you're like, oh, I'm going to get to the cause of this problem. And you start trimming the branches off. You have to strike at the root, man. You have to take that tree down and fix the problem where it's at, right? It's a term, strike at the root. Don't cut the branches off, right? Go to the source. You can't fix your kid if you're not fixing yourself. Everything you just described, Zach, are emotional and psychological traumas that are held within our minds because we've experienced them and we never dealt with them, right? And those are things that if you don't face, right, it's bad for you. It's horrible for you. It's going to cause you to turn to addiction, to try to get those feelings numbed out or masked so you can go through life normally, or supposedly how normal people go through life. But the worst part about it is how it affects your child, right? It is really going to create a foundation for them that is shaky as hell, right? It's not going to be solid. They're not going to have a good footing. They're not going to be able to stand tall. They're not going to be able to grow up and not let other people abuse them because you're the one who's the perpetrator. You're the one who's showing them, hey, life's tough. Deal with it, kid. I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to emotionally abuse you. That's okay because I love you. And like you said, that fragmentation of the mind. This is kids. Well, that lady, she seems really nice. She says she loves me, but she just stole all of my money. She drained my bank accounts. She never allows me to have sex with her. And she's horrible to my kids. She must really love me. I did well. According to my parents, my father's standard, I did really well. So when we point these things out, we just need to see them. Like we're not picking people apart. When you talk about those stories, you want people to see the dysfunction, right? It's the same way where we look at the world and we're like massive debts, unjust wars, cult and gang movements everywhere. We're not. I don't care what those people do. I point things out so people can see it, so they don't get sucked into it and they don't waste their life worrying about the bullshit. Right? You as men, we need to overcome. We need to work hard to fix ourselves so we don't pass that trauma on to the kids.
Something else that popped in because we were talking about generations here, and my dad versus me. There's the generational element here of perception of being a bad parent too that plays into defiant kids. And so your kid acting up, it's not so much that you're even mad; it's that you're mad that your mother-in-law or your father-in-law or your own parents are going to come down on you on their behavior, and you're still caught in the servitude as element to where even if you're 30 plus years old, you want to make mom and dad happy. And so you're going to come down on your kid, even though when your parents, their grandparents aren't around, you allow them to run around in the water outside or play in the mud and not worry about, oh, they're going to get dirty. They're going to get sick. You're like, no, I let them play. But when you're here, grandma, grandpa, whatever, I'm a bad parent for letting them do that. And therefore I'm going to, hey kid, you can't go in the mud now. And so the kid's like, what the fuck? We always do this, but now I can't because they're here. Or they never get to do it in the first place because any sign of wanting to act up, they're like, oh, I can't let you do this because my parents let me do this. And so they're constantly looking to their parents for approval or validation that what they're doing is the right thing as a parent. And here we roll into this, throwing a whole wrench into the mixer here. I was going to say curious, I'm trying to mix up my metaphors. And so it's like you're baking that cake of a beautiful baby and all of a sudden you're throwing in dirt. Like, oh, let me ruin this. Why? Well, because I don't, want my parents to think that I'm better at cooking cakes than them. Maybe you should parent differently than your parents. Maybe you should bake that cake with different ingredients. Maybe you could take out, the force, the corporal punishment, and the control. You should allow your child to be defiant. Maybe we should create a society or an approach, a movement to parenting that takes off the emphasis on obedient children and puts it into the category, all that energy, in supporting defiant children. Supporting children who speak up for themselves. And again, that word defiant is associated with negative. You're a bad kid for being defiant. If the Nazis told me to go shoot people and I didn't shoot them, I'm defiant. Does that make me bad? To the Nazis, it does. What I'm trying to do here is get them to be defiant to the current system that we have. I'm not saying be bad kids, but defy the bullshit we see going on in our society at the mainstream level. Let's have kids who don't, and I'm going to flip it. Normally we talk about religion pressed on kids. Let's say it's the reverse. Let's say you're a religious family. You send your child to class and that teacher's like, oh, there are no gods. Don't believe in anything. You know, there's nothing. We respect the flying spaghetti monster. You'd be like, hey, kid, stand up for that. Stand up for your beliefs. When it's the reverse, it gets a little weird. People are like, no, believe in the God, but that's a different podcast. But when we're looking at this, that's a defiant kid and they're doing what's right. Wouldn't you agree? You know, for a parent that's saying, believe in yourself, all we are saying here is to take that same support that what they're doing there and standing up for their faith to an atheist, a teacher or anything, do that in every context. Stand up for your belief in this when it comes to your pursuit of what right is as a family. And if that's peaceful parenting, don't bow down to your parents who say, no, you need to hit them more. That's the problem. Or I'll hit them. That's the problem. Be defiant yourself. You should be the defiant kid and allow your child to do the same. No, mom and dad, I'm not hitting my kids anymore. I know what you did. That got me here. But I'm thinking if I remove that and I treat my child a little bit differently, I allow them to express themselves, then they're going to be better than I was. But if I do it the way you did it, the best case scenario is they turn out the exact same. And I don't want them to be the same as me. I want them to be better than me. And if parents really want that, they've got to do things differently than how they were brought up. I think I do a damn good job as a father. I think you do a damn good job as a father. We're very intentional. We're always trying to evolve. Our kids will take things that we did and improve upon them or completely dismiss them. That's a good thing because we're doing our best, but our kids are going to improve upon that system. And I'm not going to say, hey, you should do this with your kid. I'm going to say it's awesome that you do that. What made you do that? Because when I brought you up, we did this. And I will learn from my child on how they raise my grandkids. And so that's just a continuously improving process till I fucking die or we die. You know what I mean? And so it's something that we can really tap into, dude. And I think that the more we do this, you know, the more we start to evolve and allow our kids to flex, the more our kids will learn natural consequences. They'll learn, hey, I defied this. I went that way. That sucked. I'm going to go back this way. Good, man. You taught yourself a lesson. That's adulthood. You're supposed to be teaching yourself these things. I'm here to help guide, but I can't dictate what your entire life looks like. You need to be comfortable standing your ground and learning that was a good thing or bad thing. Take those lessons and learn for the next year, the next consequence, the next action or event or whatever.
No, I like it, man. I like the reframing the wording, right? Defiance as a positive. And I think
Thank you, Brendan Murata.
He's getting to us. I will say if anybody has a question who's in the live stream, throw it out there. If something you want to know, let us tackle it. But no, man. So with Defiance, right? I think the picture you just painted for me, Zach, is parents need to be defiant and not be afraid of that, right? We need to go about our life where we're not letting people tell us what to do, how to live. We need to have those values. And you know, you brought up the metaphor with the religion, whether you know you stand up for your values, no matter what it is, whether you believe, you don't believe. The biggest thing for me is freedom, right? It's having that value of freedom, the principles of liberty, and being a sovereign individual, doing what you want in life. That's where we should be defiant, not complacent, not mediocre, not looking for approval from others. And I think the reason why we push so hard to keep our kids down is because of fear, because we don't want them to be free. We don't want them to experience life on their own terms because we've never had that, right? Most people are just stuck in the system. Most people are buried with debt. They don't have any savings. Most people are overweight or obese, right? And the kids are following this. We see it, right? You go anywhere now, you see all these kids who are overweight, and it's heartbreaking that the parents do not care enough about themselves to get back on track, to do the hard work that is necessary to be healthy. It's the same thing with parenting. If we're not being defiant, if we're not living on our own terms, how are your kids going to experience that? Right? How are they going to say, hey, you know, this must be a good thing if I get to speak my mind, if I get to express these burning desires and passions that are going on inside of my mind and my body, and not let people push that down. That's a great feeling. They call that living, right? Being alive. And why would you not want to give that to your kid? The problem is you have to give it to yourself first. You have to give yourself permission to stop giving a fuck, to stop worrying what people say, stop worrying about what people think about you, and find your voice. Speak up on things that are important. And you don't have to go on social media and do it. Do it in your own life. If you're married and your wife is smacking the crap out of your kids, tell her no more, right? Tell her, hey, peaceful parenting. This is what I'm doing, right? And if you have a really shitty relationship, then then that's in a whole different conversation. But I would assume that your wife cares about you and respects you, right? That's what we want to be building. She'll listen. She'll be like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Right? Teach me, show me. Let's focus on this plan of having a healthy and high functioning family. That sounds great. Let's live. Let's enjoy it. And I don't want to put it in a simple framework, but that's what it's about to me, man. It's about living. It's about enjoying your life and not waking up every day with this constant burden or pressure of who's not listening to you, why does nobody listen to you, and that I'm not important. That's what we're teaching our kids, man, when we go down this whole route of disobedience and control.
Well, people will look at it from the angle of, well, what's the solution then? Well, if you have a defiant kid and you're looking to build defiance in yourself, you need to start getting to know you, and you need to start getting to know them. And so having a conversation with yourself, having a conversation with your children, that's how you get to that level of understanding. And so when your kid's being defiant, and again, I put that in the positive. You can put it into the negative. They're not listening to you. Let's be a little more clear. You want them to do something, they're not listening. Instead of doubling down and coming at it with I will overwhelm you with power of my voice, of my hand, of my authority. Why don't you like triple down on backing off and everything and be like, hey, what's up? Why don't you want to do the thing? Like let it easily fix, man. Yeah. We're really dropping these heavy nuggets here. But look, man, how do you get to know your spouse better? You talk to her or you talk to him, whatever is going on there. How do you get to better know your kid? You speak to him. You sit down and you have a conversation. Why don't you want them clean your room and hear them? It's stupid. Oh, fuck yeah, it is. I hate cleaning shit, man. There's so many other things I'd rather do. But I realized that I can keep my shit more organized and keep it cleaner for longer if I just clean it up in the moment, as opposed to waiting for it to have that blanket in the floor for a month and then I pick it up. And now it's a disgusting blanket. And I'm thinking about my son here. His blanket's on his floor right now. And so you look at it and guess what? It's a simple conversation. Hey, what's up? Why don't you want to go to school? Let them tell you, oh, there's a kid bullying me, or I don't like the teacher. I don't want to be away from you, mom and dad. Cool. Now you get to see where your kid's head's at. They miss you. They don't want to go into the world without you. There's an attachment going on there where they enjoy your company, maybe. School is going to be starting next month. Are they ready for that? Talk to them now. I don't understand why parents have such a hard time just talking to their kid when conflict is high. When the pressure's up in the room, dude, I just talk. I almost calm down, but I think that's a sense of maturity. It's like if shit hit the fan, dude, and they say like, it's the quiet guy to look out for. Like, I'm a quiet guy. Like when things go nuts, I slow things down intentionally. When you see me up here, I'm like, yeah, let's go do parent, because I'm in a very safe space. I'm in
you only have to say the word
nothing. I gotta pay
say
attention
the
to
word
the
fatherhood. Say the word fatherhood, and then that gets you going.
That's about it. But dude, when something's up with the kids, something's up with the wife, something's up with anybody, I slow down and like, all right, what's going on here? What words are they using? This is actually a conversation you and I had recently. You had mentioned noticing somebody using a word. And I was like, I picked up on that too, because specific words are chosen for specific reasons. Parents miss the specificity of the word their child chose because they're so focused on just getting them to listen. So if the kid's like, well, I'm scared of this, or I don't want to be alone, they don't hear that. They hear, I'm not going to do this. Yep. You have to clean your room because this. Dude, that was an opportunity to sit down and speak to your child and get to better know them. It wasn't an opportunity you should have taken to blast them further to get what you wanted. But you missed that. And you say you love your child more than anything, but you don't love them enough to change your habits or your default behaviors. And that's going to lead to them replicating the cycle you lived in, which is going to lead to them replicating the struggles that you fell into. And so they're going to be falling into all the holes you fell into as a parent, when you had the opportunity to fill those holes with your love, your kindness, your connection, your experience, so they could walk on by and fall into their own holes. Let them make their own mistakes, but they shouldn't be repeating your mistakes. And the way to do that is to let them into your world. And so connect and have the conversations. And when your kid's being defiant, instead of doubling down on the pressure and trying to meet at their level, I think you brought this up earlier, go above it. When my son or daughter's like, wow, the world sucks, I go up. How you doing today? What's going on? Life good? No.
It's a little bit sociopathic.
Hey, talk to me. You feel good? Let's go.
Dad, there's a rhinoceros raging towards you. It's cool. Don't worry.
Look,
I got this.
Peace. Their vision's based on movement. I've watched Jurassic Park.
I'm going to talk to the rhino. Don't worry.
Peacefully.
No, so I want to bring up a really important thing with we spoke about Thursday night in a fatherhood Zoom, and this is one of the greatest examples. It was about the bathtub.
Yeah.
No, and it just hit me because
it was great, dude.
We every Thursday night, we in a fraternity of excellence, we have fatherhood discussions. It's been going on for 3 years now, and it's not a bunch of dads sitting around talking about our feelings and holding hands. We're talking about how to be better men, how to be better fathers, where our blind spots are, the weaknesses we need to work on, the emotional regulation, not getting triggered by disobedience. And we're reading a book called The Power of Showing Up by Dan Siegel and Tina Bryson. Excellent book, highly recommend it. There's in chapter 4, it's being seen. And they use an example of a child who does not want to, well, he's in the tub taking a bath and he gets out and he doesn't want the water to be drained. And the father has a fit, right? He has a male temper tantrum, right? We have to drain the water in the tub. He's never seeing what his kid wants to do or what his kid is thinking. Never gets down to that level, never talks to him about it. We drain the tub when bath time is over. That's the rule, right? This is how unemotionally we are attached to the situation. So later on, they give a solution where you sit down with the kid and you say, hey, bud, why do you not want to drain the tub? What's going on, right? We normally drain the bathtub and then we go to bed. Dad, when I go to bed, there's going to be a war on the sea in the bathtub, right? There's going to be pirates fighting. And this is the imagination of a child. This is what they're thinking, right? This is what goes through their mind. And if we always are operating from that defensive position, right? Oh, he's being disobedient. We're never going to be able to get into our kids' mind. We're never going to be able to see them for who they truly are. And the book is filled with examples of that. And I just wanted to share that because it was powerful, man. It makes you see things so much more clear.
It's a great example, and Magdalena says she loves that book. Me too. I've seen a lot of myself in that book, and it's one of those, it's another example here where investing in your performance as a parent, buying the parenting book. I grabbed the audiobook. I'm going to be buying the book because I'm going to go back to it and take some notes. But when you look at it, you realize there's so much more to this. There's levels like that example right there. If you read the whole book, but that's your only takeaway is that little snippet and how you can apply that to other areas, you're doing well. And if that shelf there, all of those books are parenting books, every single one of them. You go into some people's libraries, they'll have more than I have right behind me. Not a single one on parenting, not a single one on fatherhood, not a single one on the child's development. And so we're willing to say, like, I'll research how to build my body. I'll research how to grow my bank account. I'll research how to get sex or have better sex. I'll research how to, operate in the world of crypto or understanding what's going on in the world. I'll read about politics, but never fatherhood. I'll never read about being a better parent. And that has always, that's a crazy thing to take away. I wrote a lot about parenting. I read a lot of blog posts. It wasn't until we crossed paths that I started reading all the books. And dude, I felt like, how did I miss this? And so it is one of the things I like to remind people is like, you can't miss that. Blogs aren't enough. They're a good step in the right direction though. That was the world I lived in for a long time. I read a lot of, on Reddit, there's a lot about parenting as well. And so I went on that path, but it was when I started getting the books, applying those lessons, I amplified everything I was already doing by a significant amount. I became a lot better as a dad, basically. And so when you look at that example there, that doesn't happen if we don't read the book. We invest the time in it. And we're talking about the fatherhood calls. Imagine, I mean, there are people now who can't get 3 friends over once a month for a cookout. And we're getting 20 plus fathers on to talk about fatherhood, which is a taboo subject and it gets a little sensitive, and we've been doing it for 3 years straight. You're the genesis of it. You created that and have been running it. And like, dude, I've loved it ever since. I was like, damn, I probably should have thought of that. I'm glad this day I did. In definitely addition to the men inside. But you
Well,
see,
I do have to give a shout out to my friend James Fry. I'm just going to throw that out there. He was one of the guys who planted those seeds to get it going.
big shout out to James. We're overdue for a call with him. Looking forward to talking to James. We got James. I was thinking of Josh and Jimmy. Like, there were a lot of men rolling in there. And honestly, we're going to have them on here. We were talking a lot about getting these guys onto this channel for you guys on these Sunday mornings because it's important to hear other perspectives besides our own. But the final point I wanted to make on that is that when you speak about the bathtub, you speak about doing things with the kids, you speak about defiance, a lot of times it's just a misunderstanding. And what a shame it would be for you to cause some irreparable damage or create a giant wedge between yourself and your child as they grow based off a misunderstanding. You just didn't see each other and you couldn't hear each other correctly. And it's not that the kid doesn't listen to you. And it's not that you're a bad parent because they are they're being defiant. That's not a bad thing. You might be being a great parent. And that's why they feel confident enough to say, no, we stand up for ourselves. Like you taught me, Dad, and I'm standing up for myself right now to you and to the world and to anybody. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. You set that example. If you think about it like that, you'll stop being so heavy on yourself. I'm a bad dad because my kids aren't immediately compliant. And there are men out there who everything's based on control. Control. It's fear. There's so much fear because if you don't control them, they're going to leave you or they're going to do the wrong thing or something bad's going to happen. That's not a healthy place to live in, man. That's not when you think about going to your happy place, that's not a mindset that I could ever operate in. Like, you take everything away I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of anything I'm doing. When it comes to my kids saying no, I'm not afraid of you thinking I'm a less of a man. Bro, I don't care about your perspective of me as a man as much as I care about the development of those children. And if you're going to tell me, well, you're not a good dad for not hating your kids, so be it. You're the Nazi. I don't want to be good in your eyes. You're the bad guy. And if a bad guy thinks I'm a good guy, then I'm a bad guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I want the right people to think about me in the right light. Just for clarification, Anthony is not a Nazi. Do not take that. I'm not going to run with it. People are going to clip that out. You're a Nazi.
No, man. Listen, that is that's an excellent point, Zach. I think about those moments. If you can paint the picture and go back in time when you weren't there, you didn't see your kid, right? Whether it was their act of defiance, them telling you, no, I don't want to clean my room. I don't want to eat my vegetables. I hate you, whatever it was. And in those moments, you never took the time to see them. You never took the time to really take a step back and say, all right, so my job as a dad is to help develop my kids to be healthy individuals where one day they can go out and live their own life. You never did that. What you did is say, man, this makes me angry. I'm pissed off now. I'm going to hit my kid. I'm going to yell at them. I'm going to put them in a timeout. I'm going to go throw them somewhere in the home where they have to stare at the corner of a wall to teach them a lesson, right? To teach them that if they don't listen to me, they have to sit by themselves in pain, in sorrow. And when they can behave how I tell them, then they can come back into my life. Right now, okay, now you're acting the way that I want. I don't care what goes on with you. I don't care how you feel. I don't care how scared you are. I don't care how upset you are. I don't care about anything about you. You're showing me what I want to see. So now you can be a part of this family. So, like I said, if I think back into the past, if that's how you operate, I think about my kids now when they're older and all the situations, all the problems, all the hard things in life that we're faced with. And I could not imagine my existence with my kids not coming to me now with those problems, not creating that bond prior where they're not easy conversations, man. There's some tough things you have to deal with in life. Your kids are going to go through it. We've all went through it. And how great that is, man, to experience that and be able to provide that value to your kids, to be able to say, hey, I see you. I hear you. I can help you, right? For them to get comfort in you as a strong, confident man. And I don't want to get into what happens too much if they don't have that, right? That's the gangs, the Antifa, the different movements that are going on, the Bloods and the Crips. That's what happens when we don't see that. But I just want to emphasize that, man. That is where, like, that's a goal that every father should have. When your kids get older, they're coming to you with that real stuff.
Dude. I could go with, it's 10 o'clock. I could go on like 40 examples of like ways that's played out, man. And so sometimes on these, we gotta harness ourselves in and save the juice for the next one. But I'm sitting like, that's some heavy hitting shit, man. And honestly, we're taking care of our future selves. And to be the strongest man you can be, you've got to be able to look at this, not just from your immediate compliance of what it is you want right now, but like in the long run, what really matters here. And what really matters is not that you look good in that moment in front of other parents, is that you show your kid you have their back. And so when they're defiant and they stay in their ground, you're like, yeah, what's up? Like I said, my kids used to have a color chart, and my daughter got upset and she came in like, oh, I got red. I was like, I'm not mad. What did your teacher get? I got your back. What color did you give her? Oh, she didn't call me today. Yeah, she got red too. You're good. Like, dude, it spins it. And they're like, oh, cool. And like, you can see like, oh, you're not upset about it. Like this is a cool thing, because they made me feel like this is really bad, but dad, you're not upset at all. So this is not bad. I'm good. Yeah. Well, let's talk
So I need to point this out, right? The hypocrisy. If you go back a few generations, all the parents are like, listen to your teachers, be a good student, follow orders. Now they're like, don't listen to the teachers. The teachers are crazy. They're pushing a socialist Marxist agenda. They're making kids transgender. Yeah, it's funny how that comes full circle, right? When you don't teach your kids.
And you know what's been consistent all along? Having a strong home. Yes. If you had a strong home then, you're good. If you had a strong home now, you're good. The whole time, strong home. I just noticed something. So I was fixing my hair and I'm like, yo, we might have the best hair on the internet. And so I'm going to go ahead and just call it now. Name another duo. Is it the Hodge twins? I got to go check them out. I don't remember what they're rocking, but I'm trying to think of another duo of dudes that are creating content that have fucking beautiful manes like that. Look at that. I look like a fucking,
let's go.
That's some good shit. I was about to chop it off. I'm thinking about leaving it now. I don't know. I got a little distracted there, but it's good.
It's okay. It happens.
Hey, I also want to point something out. If you notice how pale I am right now, like all the blood has left my face, this is my third cup of coffee and I've not eaten. And so we started this morning with FOE. I was like straight up about to vomit during what you were saying. And I was like, just hold it in. But now I'm looking at myself and I can see the blood leaving my fucking head. And so not only do we have good hair, but we push through our fucking sickness. And so with all of that, Anthony, this has been a solid show. I really like this new time. I dig going from the morning coffee call to this one. And one of the things is, I know we've got a lot of people going to church. We've got a lot of people that this is their day of relaxation, and they're just out with the family. But it's also a lot of families are coming together to look at, how can we be better? And if you're going to spend your time on something like this, where we're working to make families more connected and stronger, that's something you want to invest time in. And so if you're not going to buy the book and read it, the least you could do is listen to a YouTube video. We're streaming on Facebook, we're streaming on Twitter. Turn those social media platforms into productive areas where you become a better person. And so don't just listen to what we said, though. Take it and apply. And so this week, when there's defiance, see it as an opportunity to connect and maybe support the defiance. Like, yeah, I like the way you think about it, kid. Let's do it your way. Maybe there's something there to it. If you have any questions, though, or if you're going through a unique scenario that you're like, I don't think that's going to apply, reach out to us. Links to our social media are below. You can always catch us on here. We answer all live questions. So if you drop a question in the chat live, we'll address it on air. And, you kind of get to put us in the hot seat because we kind of you get to watch us squirm if it's a hard one. But it's good, though, because you get to see where we really stand. All of that is said to say this. Like, subscribe, share the good word if you enjoy what we're talking about. And we'll see you guys next Sunday morning. Take care.